Ladies and gentlemen,
Welcome once again to the TangentCast with myself and Marta, and of course,
Paul. Yeah, if you can hear the neighbour's dog, sorry about that. Unfortunately,
it's barking McBark lately, so...
yeah, pretty much. It's not making me angry or anything, promise.
So, apart from that, how have you been this week, Paul?
Not sick for a couple of weeks, so that's nice.
I think I've pretty much recovered from whatever it was now, and you have obviously have, so that's good. Good.
So we're alive.
Most of you doing Easter things the last couple of days.
The Grim Reaper isn't following me for a while, so that's nice.
Yeah, most of you doing Easter things with the family the last couple of days and other stuff. So yeah.
I've actually been able to go back to the gym and work out and do more than treadmill. It's so nice.
So nice.
I've lost some strength and stuff.
Yeah, I know. When I went back to the gym, it's like, oh, it's so good to be back, and then I'm just like, but I'm so weak.
Yeah. You're like the muscles there, but you just like you.
Yeah. It's just like, what? I have to do stuff.
Yeah.
God.
Oh, good old losing about 20% of your bench.
Oh well.
Anyway,
what have you been playing this week, if anything?
There's only one thing I've been playing.
Dark Souls.
Yeah, not too much because I've been really busy with other stuff.
But you played it like a couple of hours, Dark Souls 3, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So, opinions? Obviously, keep it spoiler-free as possible, but opinions?
Well, how everyone says that the game is like, how can I put it, a lot easier at the start, but the progress curve goes up?
Yeah.
I'd agree for the first hour. Like, the first hour, I think if you're, like, let me put it like this. If you're good at Dark Souls, you're going to blast through the beginning of the game with no problems at all. If you're moderately skilled at the game, then you'll probably die maybe once or twice. Anything more than that, and you probably, have got some serious problems for later on. I didn't die at the start at all. And yes, I've got a bit of a proud face there. And I'm not great, but the only reason I managed to soldier is because I basically kept smashing my face against the bosses on Bloodborne until, profit. So I kind of had some level of hope.
We were playing Dark Souls 2 a couple of months ago, and obviously you were playing a lot of Bloodborne, obviously I played Dark Souls recently.
So for the first maybe hour and 20 minutes, depending on how much you're exploring, you're okay. But basically, when you get to the next area onwards from the dragon, and that's not a spoiler because it's Dark Souls, so dragons are pretty,
Well,
yeah.
I think most people have seen that there's a dragon involved. The whole theme of this particular iteration is fire.
Yeah.
So
it turns out that fire is a thing.
Yeah.
And
so basically, when you get to that area, it suddenly ramps up to full Dark Souls. Basically,
I wouldn't go far as to say full Dark Souls, but it goes to the point where, if you're not paying attention of the enemies, they're gonna start to swarm you.
I mean, I haven't actually played it yet because I bought it on PC because there was a bit of an offer on it, so I thought I might as well save some cash. But obviously, I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But what I've heard is that it actually has a learning curve rather than a vertical, cliff face that you have to climb up.
Yeah.
Which is probably for the best, to be honest. I mean, most likely, most people who are playing the game are Dark Souls veterans, but there probably are going to be some people who've never played a Soulsborne game before, and easing them in is probably a good way to mean they don't rage quit within the first hour.
Yeah, it's basically giving them the lube at the start, so at least they
somewhat
enjoy it.
As long as the whole game hasn't been toned down, and obviously no one's really played more than a little bit of it, given that but from what I've heard, that isn't the case, so I think we should be alright.
Anyway, I guess we should mosey on over to the news.
Well, I haven't talked about what I've been playing this week.
Oh, I thought we were talking about important stuff.
This is important. It's so important. I played a little bit of Dark Souls, but not really, because the stream decided to break and I have no idea why, so that's going to be fun to find out what the cause of that is. But I have been playing a couple of games, first of which is Slain, which I was actually looking forward to for quite some time because it looked right up my street. The aesthetic looked pretty awesome, and it said it was going to have heavy metal soundtrack, so of course, I was just like eagerly awaiting the game, and it was kind of disappointing. However, it seems the problems that I and most people have with it, because if you look on Steam, it does have mixed reviews, are being worked on by the developers, and they're probably going to fix it in an update. I have done a video on this.
What is it called? Slain 2, perchance, the update?
No. So yeah, I mean, check out my video if you want my full opinions on it. But it seems like the developers are working on the issues. So if you're interested in playing the game, hold off for a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, that's my advice. It's like if the game is a bit, but then again, this is kind of like don't pre-order anyway, unless you know the game is really good. Don't pre-order.
Yeah, I mean the only reason I bought Dark Souls 3 is because A, it's going to be good anyway, and B, it was cheaper.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, like,
so
if
I'm
you-
going to buy it anyway. I might as well save some money.
Yeah, like games like Dark Souls, fair enough. Uncharted.
I basically never pre-order.
Uncharted, you're probably going to be fine. Quantum Break, you're going to be fine. But yeah, but other games like
I would dispute that heavily, but never mind.
but games like on the
I
Xbox.
would not. I mean, I wouldn't even dream of pre-ordering a game like, say, No Man's Sky, because we don't
No,
basically know
definitely
nothing
wouldn't.
about that game.
I also wouldn't. My rule is also don't pre-order anything from Ubisoft.
Oh yeah, basically there are maybe a couple of situations I'll pre-order. If it's by Blizzard, I'll probably pre-order because they usually do a good job.
Yeah, the Diablo 3 launch was pretty smooth.
Well, yeah, there's exceptions to every rule, but I'm not a big Diablo person anyway. I didn't play it till we got the Reaper of Souls on PS4,
Which
so
was
there you
pretty
go.
sweet, to be
No,
fair.
that was good fun. I'm glad I waited. That was good fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time though, it's StarCraft, so it's fine. Anyway, shall we move swiftly on to the news?
Yes, so I guess the big thing is the PS4K.
Yes, this is a thing that is apparently happening according to sources, although we have yet to hear any official word from Sony as far as I understand.
They're probably like beating their employees to death at this point for the leak.
I'm a bit worried about the 4K thing, to be honest, but tell people about it before we get into that.
Well, I've put out lengthy articles and videos about this, so it's a big subject. But here's what we kind of managed to piece together.
Yeah.
So basically, the PS4K is not most likely relevant in terms of the graphical capabilities of the machine, because to render 1080p versus 4K, you need a GPU that's about 4 times faster. So the very fact of the matter is, there's no way they can squeeze that amount of performance in a $400 console. There's just no way they can do it. I mean, they could, but Sony would be bankrupt. Basically, you'd be costing them massive amounts of money.
Right.
And it also wouldn't fit in the power envelope of a console. So basically, there's two possible scenarios. One, the GPU on the PS4 has 2 compute units. There's 64 shaders in each compute unit, which means it's 128 shaders. And the clock speed of the GPU is 800 megahertz. It's good to up to about, well, the Xbox One runs at 850, but with much fewer shaders. So they could probably squeeze it up to 850 to 900 megahertz. And they could clock the CPU up, let's say, to 1.7, 1.75, same as the Xbox
Yeah, but that's
Ones.
not going to be enough for 4K.
No, this is scenario A. This is like a more powerful machine, but where 4K comes in is the next generation of GPUs from AMD, the Polaris architecture, basically has full HDMI 2.0 support. It's got HDCP, the latest,
HBM
support.
as well, right?
No, not HBM. That's memory standards.
Oh,
No
okay.
way you're going to put that in.
All right.
So basically, with HDCP and all of this stuff, we're talking for a console. HBM is obviously for Polaris, but there's no way they're going to put that into a console.
All right, fair enough.
So basically, scenario A is that the system's going to be more powerful, maybe about the difference between the Xbox One to PS4 is between the PS4 vanilla and the 4K machine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be more powerful, but it's going to be better at playing back 4K video content. It's going to be better at streaming, and it's going to have that little extra good oomph behind it for VR content.
The sources have said, though, as far as I understand, that this is 4K gaming, not 4K streaming.
Yeah,
right?
you can run 4K. Like, for example, you could run Doom at 4K. I mean, the original Doom, of course.
Yeah,
or
the original Doom,
Yeah,
not the reboot.
No,
that's
there's
not
just
out
no
yet.
way, and that's not being pertinent or funny or anything like that. It will
I
trolley.
mean, obviously, this is all from like uninformed sources.
The
or
second
whatever.
option is they could put in a GPU that's Polaris based, which is offering 2.5 times performance per watt. The PS4's GPU is about 1.84 T-flops, surrounding it up. Let's say they've got a GPU in there which is about 40 flops, which is unlikely, but let's say they did do that. They'd increase the memory speeds a bit from like 5 gigahertz RAM, or 5.5 actually, to like 6.5, not too difficult. They'd increase the Jaguar's clock speed again, let's say from about 1.6, which it is now, to about 1.8, 1.9. Also, theoretically, not too difficult. And they would obviously have a machine which is considerably more capable. Would it be able to run 4K games? No, because it still just does not have the juice behind it. And for example of that,
So basically, it's not going to be a 4K gaming machine, but it might be more powerful.
it's going to be more powerful. The developers have said for the leaks that it is considerably more powerful. There is definitely a difference, but the PlayStation 4 vanilla, if I put a disc in that's optimized for this machine. It will run on a vanilla PS4, but you're going to be having to deal with less graphical fidelity, lower resolution, lower frame rate.
That's where I'm concerned, because this has actually come up with the new 3DS. And obviously, as we all know, the new 3DS is a more powerful, improved version of the 3DS, right? And there are a couple of games that are only available.
Xenoblade, I think, is one of them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Hyrule Warriors Legends, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Excuse me. I think that's available on new 3DS and 3DS. But apparently, this isn't from me. Even though it technically does work on the 3DS, apparently it runs like absolute arse to the point where it drops below like 10 frames a second or something. And it is not labelled in that way.
See,
it is not clearly labelled, hey, this is meant for a 3DS. I mean, why are they even selling it on an old 3DS if that's how badly it runs?
See, I
don't want a situation like that, basically.
My thing on this is that I think consoles need an upgrade. I know I'm probably going to get lynched for that, but look, bottom line is, consoles...
primarily PC gaming channel, should not be surprising.
Look, the first time I played Bloodborne, which I was talking about earlier, I could not enjoy the game because it went sub 30 FPS on certain bosses. And I'm not just talking like, it went to 29, 28. You know, it's way below that. And when you're fighting bosses like Vicar Amelia, and 1 minute you can parry, the next minute the frames go so bad that you just can't, or the loading times were just awful. The fact of the matter is, they're squeezing. The developers have squeezed so much. But for example, even the developers behind Killzone Shadowfall or Infamous Second Son, Sucker Punch or Guerrilla Games, they've gone on record and said that, you know, they've already used, and this was, by the way, when Shadowfall was being released.
Shadowfall was a launch title. Let's
no, I'm not even talking about the release of the game. I'm talking the beta footage that is showed before the release. They're always going on record and saying that they used up their memory. The PS4's memory is about 4.5 gigabytes with flexible memory, which is 512. All flexible memory is, it's basically memory that the developers don't manage. It's literally just what the OS manages, right? You've got 5 gigabytes of RAM. A PC GPU is 4 gigabytes now, minimum, for the high-end ones, and they're going to be 8 gigabytes from the new generation. Now, I know that might not sound like a big deal, but the bottom line is developers are going to start hitting into walls. Like the CPU, once again, Guerrilla Games have mentioned... No, it wasn't Guerrilla Games, excuse me, it was Sucker Punch. They said that the CPU on the PS4 is the limiting factor. That's why they're not needing to shift to compute. Now, do I think Sony are handling this the right way? Do I think Sony could have made a more powerful PlayStation 4 at launch? No. Because you've got... At the time the PS4 was released, you had very limited APUs available. The AMD Jaguar was the best CPU that they could put in with the power envelope, the TDP, the price they could afford. There's not much more they could have done. I'm not blaming Sony. But we as gamers, we're shifting to 4K. Like Microsoft at the GDC DirectX 12 Advanced Conference, they said, and I quote, HDR is the future. The benefits of HDR is you get to put a higher, more colours on screen. You've got a better gamut between dark greys and blacks, or light greys and whites, which might not sound like a thing, but when you start seeing, you know, lens flares in games, like for example, let's say you're on a space station, right, and you see a space ship in the background fighting another one. You see explosions, and you know, like one of the reactor cores goes off, and you see like. And then, you know, you've got sparks flying and all these other spaceships that are flying around in battle, and they're pew-pewing their lasers. Imagine you have a situation where the ship explodes and it goes to a blinding flash, right? Mm-hmm. In reality, if I was there, if I was on that space station, you would still be able to see, for example, some of the ships flying around, or some of the lasers or torpedoes or whatever. But the problem with games is the way the colour gamuts on modern TVs work, it blocks a lot of those colours out. So there's going to be a shift to HDR. So Microsoft and AMD and Nvidia have all gone on records and said that, you know, this is going to be the next generation and the adoption rate is going to be faster. So
basically, TLDR, consoles need an upgrade.
Yeah, but what I think they should have done, and I think it's a bit late now, is they should have had an upgrade slot, basically. And I think modern systems need a slot physically where in the future developers can just put in a better APU, put in a better GPU. It's basically like the old RAM packs on the N64, or it's more akin to the Sega Saturn upgrade cart, where you literally just put it in, and I think that would work.
Possibly. Alright, I think we've rambled on about that for long enough. Let's move on to the next thing, which I guess is the NX controller. Basically, both of the images that pretty much sent the internet into a frenzy were both fake from two different people that weren't working in collusion. One guy made one thing, and then another guy decided, hey, I'm going to do that as well, without really saying, like, let's work together or something. And I have to say, like, just GG to both of them, because they had us pretty fooled.
This question, was it based... They did work, though, based upon the original...
It is based on the patent, but the thing is, a final consumer product very rarely looks exactly like the
PS3
patent.
Batarang.
Exactly. It will, most of the time, it will look almost nothing like the patent that they filed. It will go through various revisions and through testing and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And for something to look exactly like the patent is a bit suspicious. And I've said this from the beginning, that this is off, that it looks exactly like the patent, you know?
To be honest, though, I had already said that I thought that the prototypes they were showing were of the patent, but the final retail version would not look like that. I thought they were sending that to developers just to see what developers themselves thought in-house.
Yeah, but basically, the first version we saw was basically made in Photoshop or something, I think, or some sort of 3D modelling program. I'm honestly not sure. Whereas the second...
Probably Cinema 4D.
Yeah, something. I'm not honestly sure.
Or maybe ZBrush.
There's an article I did that has a video how both of these things were made. Anyway, the second one is actually the more impressive one. And this is the reason why the second one was more convincing than the first. Is because the guy who made it is literally a 3D printed model based off the first guy's work. So he literally made the controller in real life, which is why it looks so real, because it is technically a thing that exists. It's just not the actual NX controller.
That is some dedication.
I know. That's why I was like, I'm not even mad. That's impressive.
I know. You can't be mad at sometimes when they do stuff like that. It's just like you put so much work in.
I was like, just well played. You had everyone so fooled and worked up into a frenzy.
I bet Nintendo were like, what the hell? At one point, you got to imagine Nintendo were like, I bet they were like, what? Someone's got a real NX controller? There was like a moment of panic.
Fun that Nintendo didn't say anything. Kind of fanned the flames a little bit.
Yeah, but that's the problem with Nintendo.
Yeah. So that's all fake. That's all.
Then again, you say all of that, but for example, the ball of Nintendo, and this is another article I did. Plug. Is that back when they remember how the the Wii U was supposed to be being cancelled, and it was basically, you know...
Oh, yeah, and they said, no, it's not, it's totally not.
Yeah, but they basically disputed what Nakai had said, right? But they've got a history of doing that. Like, Nakai had reported that the new 3DS was being produced.
I know.
And the 3DSi, and all of these different systems.
My rule is, whenever a company says they aren't doing a thing, I don't believe them.
No, basically.
Because a lot of the time they are doing a
Especially
thing.
Nintendo.
Especially anybody, like... A lot of the time when a company's like saying, oh, we can't comment, or this rumour is untrue, a couple of months later, yeah, actually, by the way, it's true.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember who did Until Dawn, the developer, but they basically said, yeah, we're not doing a VR thing based on Until Dawn. A couple of weeks later, yeah, we're doing a VR thing based on Until Dawn, and I was just like, okay, all right then.
Yeah. Pretty much.
So,
anyone would think that they're working on rocket, secrets or something like that.
So, to be honest, when I heard that both of these pictures were fake, my reaction was, thank God, because that controller looked terrible.
All right, shall we move on to...
Let's.
This is not really a discussion piece, but I just wanted to, because a couple of people asked me, am I going to talk about temporal resolution and do an analysis? Yes, but
Quantum Break, I think it was.
Correct. Yeah. I will do. But, and you knew there was going to be a but in there, because we all like buts, I'm going to wait for a little longer because I need to go over the GDC presentations, and also I want to see if I can find more information on the whole thing to see if they've done it differently to Killzone Shadowfall. But you can check that out. You can just search Killzone Shadowfall or Temporal Resolution.
I'll link it in the description below the video.
Because I'll forget.
Yeah.
Also, do we want to talk about the God damn it, X1 Digital Trading.
Yeah,
thing.
you might remember a little while ago you did a video on how there was a survey floating around.
And I was actually really excited about the prospect.
Yeah, but basically the survey was asking, would you be interested in trading in your digital games for 10% of their purchase value?
Which I think is a little low, but...
I say it's extremely low, but that's a different topic. But basically, Microsoft have kind of dismissed this very sort of offhandedly. Basically, Aaron Greenberg made a comment on Twitter that went something along the lines of, "Oh, there was a survey. I don't know why that was on a survey. We're not doing that." That's not exact words, but basically that's the gist of what he said. So
I think it's a real shame.
They need to do something like this. I mean, I would say 10% is far too low. 50% maybe.
No, that's too. See, the problem you've got with this, and this is something I was saying in my original video. Technically speaking, you could resell a digital game 5 billion times and it does not atrophy. The issue is, though, let's say sometimes you might get, obviously the value of games diminishes and licenses technically can constantly be produced for the same game. But the reason I think it's a bit weird as well is you could get some really odd situations where, let's say that you buy the pre-ordered version, right, and let's say your pre-order version comes with, like, you know, Kilophon 3000 rifle. So I've got that. I sell the original. Do I keep the Kilophon 3000 tokens or do you get them? And the other issue...
Probably not, to be honest.
Yeah, and the other issue you've got is, let's say a game goes out of print.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all know about Marvel vs. Capcom 3 with Capcom, right? Where they had to basically stop producing it. It wasn't their fault. They're not even allowed to license it anymore. So what happens if you want to trade that game in? I mean, can you trade it in? Would they just be like, sorry, we can't accept this license, or what?
I don't know. I mean, that'd be hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I just think 10% is far too low. There's no point.
No, it should be 20% minimum.
Thing is, if let's say you buy a game for $60 on the Xbox store or whatever, 10% is $6, right?
Yeah.
Most people would say that is not worth the effort to go through the trouble of trading it in, and I wouldn't really blame them because that's nothing.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think 20 to 25% is really the minimum.
Just do it like physical trading, like.
So
the value will listen. The value will decrease as time goes on. So like, if I buy a game and then 2 days, like that's just come out, and then 2 days later I trade it in because it's bad or it's really short or something, I'll probably get a decent amount of money for that. Like probably about, I don't know, like 50%, maybe no, not 50, 30% maybe of the value at that point.
What, if you trade it in immediately?
Yeah, like literally like 2 days later.
No, you'll probably get a lot more than that. Like,
yeah, but
maybe
let's say like, we buy a game for £45. If I trade it in like 2 days later, it'll probably be worth like £38.
Yeah, as I said, you're looking at about maybe 78% of the value, depending on the shop and the stars.
So maybe you just do it like that. Obviously, you probably wouldn't start that high, but let's say you start at 50 or 40%, and then as time goes on, obviously the value will depreciate as value decreases. That would seem like a reasonable way to do it, and physical trading already does this, so I don't see a reason why not.
And I think that's about everything in this that we wanted to discuss, isn't it?
There's one last thing I want to discuss before we head off, and that's regarding Hitman, because I still think this is really, really bad, to be honest. And obviously we
That's
know...
a bad Square Enix!
Now we obviously know and knew before the game even came out that Hitman has a really strong online component where they have these live events and all this other stuff that you can only really get when you're on their servers. That's fine. I have no problem with that. They do have an offline mode. However...
Oh, that's generous.
However,
it's almost like it used to be back in like the 2000s.
I know, right? However, let's say I'm playing on the online mode and their servers fall over or my internet falls over. Either of these things can happen at any time. Quite frequently, probably, as well. So I'm kicked off back to the menu, and I have now only have the option to play offline. I do not have access offline to any of the things I have unlocked online. No weapons, no costumes, and none of the challenges I've completed are there. I've lost everything. Sucky, but okay, I continue playing offline. Oh, the servers are back up. I'm going to go back online. All that stuff I did just offline doesn't transfer over. So a lot of people are pissed about this, quite naturally, because it is a pretty aggressive form of always online DRM, to be quite frank. And IO Interactive were like, yeah, it's not going to change because of the live events. And that seems like such a BS reasoning. in my opinion, it's like, okay, you're worried about people cheating and giving themselves stuff they shouldn't have.
Yeah, this is the whole Street Fighter problem as well.
I get that, but here's the thing. Just have a thing to check that it's legit. Like, say you want to sign in after you've been offline for a while, just have a check to say, okay, did you get these items legitimately? Okay, you did, great, off you go. I'm not a developer, but I wouldn't have thought they'd be that hard to do. I mean, Rockstar do it with GTA Online, right? They don't allow you to cheat online. You can't use cheats on the multiplayer mode.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and obviously you can't bring things that you've cheated into existence onto the online mode. So it's obviously doable, and it would actually allow you to transfer saves from one to the other. There's no real reason to do it other than lol DRM, to be honest.
To be totally blunt with you, I just think this is a crock of wank. It's like, honestly, it is. Because you shouldn't punish players, especially for those who don't really want to play online that much. It's like, if you've got a really crappy internet connection...
You can play offline, but it's more the issue that you can't then take the progress you've made offline online and vice versa.
Yeah, it's like, imagine if you're gaming on a laptop, which can happen because you've got some bloody good gaming laptops now. They're pushing the external GPUs. So what about if you don't have access to Wi-Fi or what have you? You're playing on a train.
It's just more that, like, internet is unreliable. You can have the best internet connection on the planet, but if it stops working because your ISP's having a moment or the Square's servers have a tantrum, you are thrown off and you can't do anything about it.
To be honest, here's why I don't like any of this. Because in 3 years' time, and I know, technically speaking, it probably won't matter at this point, but still, I don't think there should ever be online components in a game, progress held behind, or modes where if the server...
Unless it's a multiplayer only game, that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, where servers, when they go down, it affects any of the main content in the game.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know what the hell's going to happen. You know, imagine, for example, their servers get hit with a bloody DDoS attack.
Yeah. So it's pretty sucky, and unfortunately it looks like it's not going to change anytime soon unless people complain loud enough. So that's the last thing I wanted to discuss. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Actually, two very small things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what she said. First things first. Someone asked if we're going to do a Saturn in-depth analysis. I am actually. I want to do that because Saturn is one of my favourite consoles ever. But I will be doing that probably I don't know when I'll be doing it. Maybe
at some point.
Yeah, as soon as I can, basically. Speaking of as soon as I can, I've been trying some new editing stuff for some of the more recent videos. Let me know if you likes it. It would have been, for example, on yesterday's videos in particular for myself, which would have been Polaris, the PS4 video. I won't be able to do it, at least in the short term, on all videos, but when I can and when I've got time, I will do that. So let me know in the comments if you likes it.
Yeah,
That's about it.
And if you have any questions for us to answer next week, then just hit us up in the comments or on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Pretty much. That's going to be a thing, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Alright, cool. Bye.
Bye.
Pretty much.